My name is Cody Kraus, and I'm a real estate broker owner that's obsessed with everything real estate. Investing, building, selling, developing, farming, you name it. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old, and I've learned a ton through trial and error, and I've met some of the coolest people ever. This is a show where I invite these people on to talk about their experiences and mine, plus everything else real estate. Let's go. All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to the Everything Real Estate Show. Today, I have my friend Phil Spoelstra on the show with me. For anybody who hasn't met Phil, who is Phil?
Yeah. I guess I'm going to kind of play off what my pastor talked about on Sunday. He kind of gave the old list, the list of F words, I guess, right? Which was faith,
Okay,
family, finances, and fitness, I guess. So in that order,
sure.
yeah, I'm a Christ follower, and I'm a husband and a dad, and a farm realtor. So part of a team that sells farm real estate across the province, and like staying busy with a bit of hockey, a bit of outdoors, getting the kids into hunting and fishing and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's a
Sounds like
whole
a country song right there. I like it.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's a dog in there too somewhere. Yeah.
And an old truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So you guys are based out of London, but you sell farms across Ontario. Farm Ontario is the name of the team or the website if anybody wants to look it up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of those things that we didn't realize that it would actually fill itself out over time, right? We kind of grabbed the name. We were surprised it was available when we were starting the team up, and had no idea we would end up where we are, with a guy up in Eastern Ontario covering Ottawa. And we've got guys in Meaford covering that area, and we got guys pushing down into Niagara, and then a little closer to you now towards Chatham too. So it's really starting to fill out the brand, which yeah, is
Love it.
great.
Well, have a specialty and push on it, right? That's what Rich Robbins is saying all the time, narrow and deep.
Hmm.
And that's what you guys have done. So, why'd you get into real estate in the first place? How long into real estate now?
Yeah, right out of university. So I think it was one of those early realizations that I didn't thrive working for other people. I guess that'll be the
Can
politest way of saying
sympathize
it.
with that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
So you
carve your
just
own
chose to
path,
have like 100 different bosses instead of one particular boss, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, you got it, man. So I think that was it, and stepped into residential initially, but I had a good conversation, cool moment. I was out walking with my wife, who was my fiance at the time. We were in Ancaster, and just walking through some of the beautiful homes in Ancaster, and this young guy whips up in a hot Audi and jumps out, and the garage door opens, and there's a bunch of Remax signs there. And I told my wife, oh, I got to go talk to this guy. And told him, I'm like, hey, I want to get into commercial real estate. Went to
Yep.
business school, and that's just the trajectory that I saw in my narrow-mindedness, right? I got to go commercial. And the guy looks at me, he's like, don't do that. And he's like, you're going to be working for other guys for the rest of your life. He's like, you got to go residential, do volume, and then figure out your path from there. And he was bang on. And that's the way it started, was in residential, again, doing volume, and just getting confident in the process. And yeah, and then kind of God stepped in and redirected my path towards ag real estate. And yeah, and that's been almost 15 years now.
So 15 years since you started with farms.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
2011. So 14 and change, but yeah.
Okay. And so your partner's Ron Steenbergen?
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
how did that partnership form up, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. Long way back. Used to babysit his kids. So
Hilarious. Okay. I didn't
yeah.
know that.
Oh yeah. It's totally a country song, like all the way through, man.
Yep.
But yeah, neighbors. I'm trying to remember here if I think he built after my parents built. And whenever you move into a neighborhood, especially in the country, if you've got young kids nearby to babysit your kids, you've hit the jackpot. So
Yep.
I was that kid, and yeah, spent some time at his house babysitting his kids, and we went to the same church. And so, long before we ever would have thought of working together, we knew who each other were, and what our kind of worldviews were, and that sort of thing. So when it came to working together, there was already a bit of history there.
Cool. And if I'm not mistaken, he didn't go right into real estate. He was in hog feed sales, if I'm not mistaken. It was something along the
That's
lines of
right.
that.
Yeah, yeah, feed sales. I mean, he managed a couple co-ops, I think, and when we started talking about Farm Ontario, he was really the legitimate ag side of it, right? He brought the Rolodex of names and contacts and experience that way, and yeah, that was a huge part of getting us off the ground.
Now, I remember Ron was telling me one time he was talking to a farmer about his farm for sale, and you guys didn't have it listed, but he was asking the realtor if it was tiled. And the guy goes, "Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? I think there was some in the porch."
yeah, yeah. Some in the
And
foyer, I think he was saying, yeah,
yeah, something like that.
tile
And
in
I
the
think
foyer.
that's when Ron just kind of had like a, oh man, some people don't know farming at all. And here they are trying to sell farms.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an opportunity. Is that kind of how things started out?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think for Ron, it was sort of funny. We both started on these pathways that were, I think, of our own design, and ended up at the same spot. But he started selling houses, and which, for him was not in his wheelhouse, right? And he acknowledged pretty quickly, with the help of some friends who were honest with him, that he was in the wrong spot, and didn't really know much about houses, but knew a lot about farms and knew a lot about farmers, and was a farmer and had a farm, and yeah, just knew the ins and outs of ag, and it kind of had a light bulb moment, thanks to the help of some others, that that's the direction he needed to be on. So at the same time as he started to move into farms on his own, my wife and I had taken a sabbatical after our firstborn. We took our 5 week old, and I think my wife was probably still under the influence of painkillers after her C-section. So I caught her at a weak moment and booked flights to Europe, and uh,
Hilarious.
yeah, and we were there long enough to empty the pipeline. So came home with really no business to return to, and that allowed me to make a pivot towards country properties, and that was all based on. I think our desire to have a bit more of a traditional family life, which was, stop doing all the open houses on Sunday. It was, try and work 9 to 5. I'd love to be, say goodbye to my family after breakfast and catch up with them on their day at the dinner table, right? And I think that was the real driver behind trying to move out of res and into commercial, but just a type of commercial that I didn't think about early on. So
Now you say you took a sabbatical, like you work for a union. Oh yeah, I just took a sabbatical, took some time
yeah,
off. Like when you
unpaid, an
take a
unpaid
sabbatical in real
sabbatical,
estate, that just means you're not going to work for a few
pretty
months
much.
and you're not
Yeah,
getting paid for a few
yeah.
months.
We all know how much our vacations cost us, right?
Yeah,
That's yeah, yeah.
too
So
funny. So
yeah.
Farm Ontario came about and you guys decided, you know what, let's just specialize on one thing, do it really well. And
Hmm.
I mean, I think that was probably the first time. I've seen a few other teams and brokerages try and do that since. I mean, most
Hmm.
real estate brokerages or realtors focus on residential, but then they'll also do a little bit of farms, do a little bit of commercial, do a little bit of industrial here and there.
Yep.
Most stick to their wheelhouse, but
Yep.
in especially in small communities, you end up doing a lot of everything just because there's not usually enough of one thing just to keep you busy all the time.
Yep.
So how did that go when you branched out? Like, how easy was it saying no to your family and friends and your repeat clientele that I can't help you now? Sorry, I really just specialize in farms. And I guess how did your new clientele receive that you were specializing only in farms? Was it hard to break into that market because they also dealt with people for housings? Or did they appreciate that,
Yeah.
hey, there's someone who just does farms now?
Yeah. 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 A few questions in there. I think to circle back to the how did my client base in the residential world kind of react to it. I guess part of the deal for me kind of landing Ron and making sure he was on board with this whole master plan of doing Farm Ontario, working together, and building a farm specific real estate brokerage. was enticing him in with half of my residential business. So that was part of the
Okay.
deal, kind of the napkin contract that we had, where I just said, Ron, look, I had approached him first with the business proposition, and at first he was like, no, thanks, that's okay. I'm doing all right. You're doing all right. We'll just keep rolling. And so I was like, all right, I need to have a more compelling offer for him. So I went out, I listed a couple farms on my own, which to answer another one of your questions was very difficult. I was pretty young, early 20s, not a known name in agriculture at all. So got those two farm listings, went back to Ron, had another meeting with him, got lucky. He didn't have any listings at the time. So I said, hey, you know what? I'll bring you on both of these listings, me and you, 50-50, and I'll give you 50% of the residential business I write. And I just, whether that I thought about it or it just blurted out, he was like, okay, yeah, that's too good to pass up. So, he agreed to that. And I think we only ran residential stuff for maybe another 10, 11 months after that. And the transition was pretty smooth. And I had another good friend who still works with us and actually works with Farm Ontario, Corey MacArthur,
Yep.
who I had been doing some residential stuff with. So, it transitioned well. They were well taken care of. And, Corey took care of a few more of them as I transitioned out of that a little bit. And since then, Corey's transitioned into doing more agriculture, which has been awesome.
Yeah, Corey handled the sale of my grandpa's farm in Wardsville.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yep.
did a great job with that.
Yeah.
So cool. And I guess what's the team look like now? So that's kind of the start of it, how we came about.
Hmm.
I know you guys don't just sell farmland, like you've branched off into, you've had to learn a lot, I'm sure, dairy licensing, poultry
Hmm.
licensing, like quota numbers,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. Like, what's that learning curve look like? What kind of business are you guys doing now? Is there any limits on areas that you don't go to? Like, now
Hmm.
you're running an office out of your house. I know that you said you converted the barn at your house into an office now. You got staff
Hmm.
meetings at your house or your home office, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Give us an idea of what a week in the life looks like of Farm Ontario now.
Yeah. So I believe we're 8 brokers, working on maybe a ninth here. So brokers and agents. Not everybody's got a broker yet, but yeah. So we're covering with those guys. We're all the way out to Eastern Ontario. Arian's got Eastern Ontario covered. He's up in Ottawa and he's actually farming up there as well. He's building a great business up there. We've got
Farming, like to build his business or farming land also in addition
also
to,
farming land. Yeah,
oh,
yeah. He's got a
okay.
beautiful belted Galloway beef herd up there. So him and his wife work hard at that, and yeah, they've just started a family up that way too, which is really cool. And
Awesome.
yeah, we've got guys Ancaster Way that'll cover that portion of Ontario and down into Niagara. We've got guys up in like Perth County, Huron County, now a new guy up in Meaford, up in Grey County. Ron and I are kind of around that London area. You draw a 2-hour circle around London. We always thought was kind of that perfect spot to be in kind of the agricultural heartland of Ontario.
Yep.
That's worked out really well, which is why we've kind of plopped the office here too. And yeah, we've got two incredible staff right now that are full time. So Rika and Katie. So they're coming, like we were talking about earlier, they come into the office here. So we've really tried to cultivate, yeah, like a family feel, right? They're coming to our home for work. The team comes here for team meetings, office meetings. Clients are actually starting to come here as well, which is a really cool feel. And I guess I'm the benefactor of the shortest walk to work, which is pretty
Yep.
awesome. Yeah, but
Yep. And tough to leave work sometimes too, right? Or
yeah,
tough to
that's
get to
right.
work when you're trying to play with the kids and you should be at the office too.
Yeah, there's a good divide. At least
Yeah.
it's a walk across the front lawn and it's not down the hallway. So that's a plus. But yeah, yeah. So, but Yeah, I don't know if I missed anything on those questions there, but
Yeah, so the one to circle back to, I guess, and sorry, I keep giving you like four questions and say, here, remember all these and go
that's
for it.
okay.
But I guess what is the scope of the practice for Farm Ontario? Like
Yeah,
it's not
right.
just cash crop farmland. Like
Correct.
often there's houses attached to it. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's beef licenses or dairy licenses. Like how does
Yeah.
all that work and how have you guys had to expand your skill set to, because now it's not just selling real estate, it's understanding business concepts that like
Correct.
there's no school on understanding poultry, I would
No,
assume,
no. I mean, other
right?
than being in it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the real blessing is we've just got a team of guys that have such a breadth of experience in these markets that, we as individual agents on the team can really tap into that wealth of knowledge by, if I'm looking at a turkey farm, I can give Teo a call. His son owns a turkey farm and he owns this turkey farm with him, right? And Teo's grown up in dairy and Luke's been in greenhouses and Ron's been in hog farms and I've worked on dairy farms and beef farms and we've all got this breadth of experience on the team that really allows us to function fully as a team and allows us to handle kind of the wide variety of ag properties that we do. Um, and then again, I think it's just it's volume. It's doing those deals, right? You're going to learn something, every time you sell a dairy farm, you're going to learn another nuance, of how to do it better and how to do it properly, right? You
Now,
know,
what would
there's
like I don't know if this is the right way to ask the question, but like I know how to value farmland based on what type of soil it is, what type of drainage it is, the
yeah.
shape, the size. Like I can generally figure out that stuff, the topography, whatever.
Yeah.
How does animals and licenses affect the value of a property?
Yeah, for sure. So you're going to get, regional pressures, typical supply and demand pressures on quota. That's probably the biggest value add outside of land and buildings, right? Would be your quota on these properties, and then and now livestock as well, right? So I mean,
And
if
is
you're
that something that's like licensed annually to the operation, or how does that work?
so it would be permanently owned. So
Okay.
once you own that quota, that's yours. So that's going to give you an ability to produce a certain amount every year, whether it's poultry, whether it's eggs, whether it's milk or butter fat. That's going to give you a license to produce a certain amount, right? And then our quota systems in Canada are going to be based on demand and they grow accordingly. So if people are eating more chicken, our chicken farmers are going to get an increase in their quota holdings. And if we're drinking more milk and eating more cheese or ice cream, you'll get blips in the supply chain in the summertime when they're producing more ice cream, where our dairy farmers are going to be producing more cream and to keep up with that, right? So the whole
Sorry, I have
system
to
is
keep
designed.
adjusting my camera because the sun's
Yeah, no
setting in my
worries, man.
background. It keeps throwing off the focus. Sorry, I
No
interrupted you there.
worries.
Go
No
ahead.
worries. No worries. So yeah, so it's that's a huge part of at least the livestock farms, and then you get down to animals, right? So, a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago, it wasn't that long ago, where these whether it was beef farms or dairy farms, your cattle numbers and the value that they brought, were sometimes less than the equipment value on the farm. And now, beef prices and cattle prices on the dairy farms have just skyrocketed. So, yeah, you got to stay abreast of that, right? You got to be connected with the people that know, and you got to have those phone calls on a regular basis to check in. What's a bred heifer selling for? And then on the hog side of things, what is the livestock worth on an ongoing farm there? So yeah, they're
Or what's the China tariff on canola doing to the
yeah,
industry here too,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
100% right now. I think I learned recently. And
Yeah, we don't deal with too much canola this way, thank goodness. But yes, there's global markets that are dramatically impacting what we're dealing with here. We're a fairly small market in Southern Ontario, but yeah, those things do affect us and do affect the demand and affect ultimately the prices that our clients are going to see at the end of the day.
now, do you guys stick, sorry, excuse me, mostly to Like actual egg for profit and for a living, or do you get into the hobby farms, the equestrian properties, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we do. Yep. Yep. It's basically we say if it's zoned agriculture, we'll sell it. And that goes from everywhere from a, 25 acre horse farm, a state farm, um, right up to, 1,500 acre land packages or $100 million dairy farms. So we've had the privilege to work on all those properties in between. And all of them are important to our business model. So if it's ag, we sell it. And I think the one market that we moved into as well through COVID was helping our farm clients dispose of property that was future development land. So still agricultural, still a farm, but just making sure that they were getting what that property was worth, right? And in a lot of cases, that was critical for them to grow their farming operation on the backside of it to make sure that there was enough there for kids that wanted to get into it, right? And succession planning. So that's been a steep learning curve too.
Cool. So you
Yeah.
mentioned succession planning there. I want to talk about that. The other thing I
Mhm.
want to come back to after succession planning is money. Who's financing farms right now? How is the
Mhm.
financing working? All that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
since you mentioned succession planning, I've actually brought up the workshop that you and Ron did a few times to our company. So you guys put on a basically a farm succession plan workshop in London that my dad and I were lucky enough to attend. And you
Yeah.
guys did a great job with it. So you brought a tax specialist, an accountant, a lawyer, and then you and Ron were there. And what you did is you invited a whole bunch of people that have farms, have farm operations, all that kind of stuff. And they weren't sure if the kids wanted to take it over. They weren't sure if the
Mhm.
kids wanted nothing to do with it. They weren't I know like one common thing was the kids wanted nothing to do with, say, a dairy operation because it takes so much on a daily basis, but the family still wanted to leave farm acreage to the kids, all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So, what does
Mhm.
succession planning look like for a farmer? What have you guys learned through putting on these workshops? And what are the takeaways that people are getting from that and why it's building your business the way that it is?
I think ultimately it's just it goes to the kind of the core values of our business, right? That we're not here just to put a sign in somebody's lawn, hang a sold sign on it and carry on, right? Like we've got a heart for agriculture and we really like to see families succeed in ag, right? And a big part of that is succeeding in ag, materially, more acreage, more cattle, more livestock, whatever, more quota, seeing them grow and be able to continue. But a big part of it is protecting those relationships within those families too, right? And wanting to see the material success, but that relational success as well. And those two go hand in hand. And I think, when Ron and I got started, yeah, the sense that we got from the industry was it just seemed a little too transactional, with the realtors that we were going up against. We thought that there was more to give, more to do for ag, more to do for these families in agriculture. And I think that was a big part of where the succession planning came from, those seminars anyway, to try and walk families through proper planning so that the outcomes were better, and that they were still meeting for Christmas dinner.
Yep. And then bring in, say, a tax specialist so that they
Yeah,
understand, you know,
yeah.
um, does land trust make sense for us? Like depending on the size of the operation, like what's the
Yeah.
greatest tax efficiency? Because last thing you want is you've built up this farm portfolio that your family's worked hard for, potentially generations just
Hmm.
to give a huge chunk of it to the government,
Exactly. Yeah.
upon the end of your life here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big switch for farmers, right? They spent their whole life, buying land because they love it, but also buying land because they hate paying taxes. So
Yeah.
to switch to letting that all go and have this big looming tax bill on the other end, yeah, you have to remind people if you're paying taxes, something's gone right.
Yeah,
And
you're making money
that's
if you're paying
okay.
taxes
Yeah. Yeah,
typically.
that's okay, right? And we do all benefit from that. But helping them do that in a way where there's still funds there for legacy and helping the next generation out. So, and also enjoying the fruits of their labor. I don't know if there's another group of people worldwide that works harder than farmers, right? So,
No, and a lot of people look at farmers when they retire and sell the farm and go, "Oh, those rich farmers." But I
Yeah,
don't know too many farmers that were rich during their career. It's just
right.
the fact that their property happened to go up in value while they were working, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, it's wild, I think from the outside looking in, you just don't realize how hard some of these numbers are to make work and how hard they work to make them work. So yeah, it's
Well, and so on that note, like I remember I talked to my dad, I don't know, 15 years ago. I'm like, Dad, like the farms were cheap. They were really cheap around here for a long time. How come you didn't buy a ton of acreage? Like
yeah.
all of a sudden now, 25-acre farm, especially if you can build a house on it, that first acre might be worth 300,000. But
Hmm.
each additional in our acre in our area, whether you're clay, it might be around 18,000. You could be sand, you might be 35,000. But like
Hmm.
these farms used to be under $100,000. Now they're,
Hmm.
you know, 500, $600,000. Like, how come you didn't buy a bunch of these farms when they were dirt cheap? And he just looked at me. He's like, Cody, they didn't go up in value for forever. It's the
Yep.
last 2 decades that they happened to go up in value.
Yep.
But if one was for sale, it was for sale for a long time. The banks didn't want to lend on them.
Yep.
And it wasn't a cool thing to own farmland. So, like, what happened there? What changed? Where all of a sudden now it's a financial instrument and you have pension funds buying up land in southwestern Ontario. What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was a big shift in the economic trend in agriculture, and it was actually one of the reasons I got into farm real estate. When I was kind of faced with that choice and that opportunity to get into it, I remember I had just come back from going down with a mortgage broker buddy down into the U.S. Back when our dollar was strong
Yep.
and bought a few suits. I was done selling $250,000 properties in London. I was going for the big stuff, right? We're going to sell 500 to $1 million properties, and I need to dress the part, right? So we flew down there, picked up a couple suits, came back, and I literally never wore those suits. I had one on. I went into the Starbucks and I'm reading this Canadian business magazine, and all it is talking about is farmland is the next best investment in Canada for the next 50 years, right?
You're
And I
like, I
was like,
better go to PV Mart and get some flannel now.
that's right. That was it. We traded in the car for a pickup truck, and the rest was history. But um, yeah, you know why it all happened. There's probably a lot of moving parts there. Um, how it's held on is somewhat of a mystery as well. I think on-farm profits definitely started to increase. You had some commodity increases so income was going up, which allowed for the purchase of the land. But I think a big driver was lower interest rates, right? I think those high interest rates, for a long time really kept farms down. And yeah, and I think just like you said, I think the public's view of land as a long-term investment and a store of value started to shift. In the early 2000s. Real estate in general became hot, right? It
It's
really
like
started.
gold, but you can't steal it.
Exactly. And you can't steal it, but you can do something with it too. You get enjoyment out of it. Um, and I think if you go to Europe and you go to other countries, that was there all along. Back in the 90s when, a lot of Dutch dairy farmers were coming here, you could buy 7 acres of Ontario, like prime Ontario farmland, for the same value as you sold 1 acre back home in Holland, right? And
So they
so they
saw that it was undervalued
they
and that they
did,
could
yeah,
make their operation actually make a go at it here. Because, like,
exactly.
you're already in farming 20, 30 years, good chance you got your land paid for. Someone trying to
Hmm.
break into the industry now, very, very difficult to do
Hmm.
unless you're, succeeding the prior generation, getting into it with your family,
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
had a prior career, you happened to buy a house that had 50 acres on it. Okay, well, now all of a sudden, like, we got to start. We got some equity that we can work with, all that kind of stuff. But to
yeah,
just break into the farming industry right now would be a pretty difficult thing.
very
So
tough.
they
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
that difference in they saw, I guess, the barrier to entry was much lower in Ontario at that time than Europe, obviously.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So some of that money started flowing into our market. And I think it just, yeah, took off from there. And I think, like we remember back in the 2000s, all these HGTV shows coming out and just driving the investment into, single family houses. And then, it pushed into multifamily dwellings and rental properties, and that became the thing to own. And I think it was just a ripple effect as well that started to go out because for the last number of years selling farms, it's been still largely farmers looking at it as the purchaser, but now you've got institutional investors, like you mentioned, and you've got pension plans and investment funds, but also just successful people from town, that are looking to bury their money in the ground as um, yeah, a hedge on inflation. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, how does like the financing's got to be different on farms than it used to be. So like for
Hmm.
example, in this area, and I'll just use my context here. I don't know what the price per acre is in London or Ingersoll or Woodstock or Ottawa or whatever. You
Hmm.
guys know that. But here, let's say that a nice acre of plastic tiled farmland that's mostly clay with a little bit of loam coming through it. You're probably in that 24,000 an acre,
Hmm.
maybe 26 depending where it's located. $26,000 an acre. The rent on farmland right now, if you're straight renting it, somewhere from that $300 to $500 an acre, depending on your soil type, what crop they're growing, all that kind of stuff. Share crop, you
Hmm.
can, if you really understand the industry and you understand the tax advantages, well, we could go share cropping it instead. But just to look at it for if people really aren't familiar with the farming industry and they see $25,000 an acre and my rent is going to be $400 an acre.
Yeah.
How exactly does that make sense? What does the financing look like? Like, how are banks lending
Yeah.
on this? Because the debt is not getting serviced by the
No, it's
rent.
not. No, and I mean, and those returns you're talking about are pretty decent. Actually looking down the highway towards Chatham is probably one of the brightest spots in Ontario in terms of that, rent rate percentage per acre versus price per acre. You're actually moving towards a little closer to 2% return, whereas there's a lot of places in Ontario here that are sitting around a 1% return on that price per acre versus rent per acre. So. Yeah, those aren't numbers that excite the bank in terms of paying off debt.
No.
So yeah, you mentioned it before. There's a lot of farmers out there that have been farming for 30 years and they've paid off some of the land that they've got. And I think that's the snowball effect that allows farmers to continue to pick up farms and purchase farms and grow their operation is just using that equity from and cash flow from these other farms that are now sitting at, maybe they're able to generate three, four, $500 an acre profit on some of these farms that they actually paid $1,000 an acre for, or $500 an acre for. So you're stealing the income and the profits from these other properties that they own to pay for the new one to continue growth, right? And I think
So
that's
the income from the portfolio is what's servicing the debt on the
yeah,
new acquisition, because the new acquisition is not servicing itself.
correct. Yeah,
And like when you say 2%, a lot of people think, oh, well, the rule in real estate's always been if you can buy a rental and get 1%, per month of your value, but you're talking annual. You're getting, if
annual.
you're
Yeah,
lucky, you're getting 2% annually back of what you paid for it. Rental
that's
real
right.
estate, like even now, you can still probably get, maybe point 0.6, point 0.7
Hmm.
percent of your rent per month on an annualized basis. But like
Hmm.
2% a year is good on land. And so I guess who is the person that's acquiring land right now? I got to imagine that over 90% of the time it's somebody who's already got a portfolio and the money from that
Yep.
portfolio is just pushing this one forward.
Yep, exactly, and probably even greater than 90%. So yeah, that is the reality there. And yeah, I mean, we see other buyers in the marketplace, and they fill a role for sure. But I think the thing that excites us the most, we get a lot of questions from folks who are curious about agriculture, or they see an article float through, or see something on the newsreel regarding certain groups of people owning our farmland, right? The majority of farms we're selling are going to Canadian farmers.
Yeah.
So that is still the reality. And yeah, they are leveraging generational wealth and generational equity that's been built up in their farming operation to continue growing. Yeah.
Now, are most of the people that you're selling farmland to, do they work the land themselves, or are most of these people sharecropping or renting out the property?
Most are running it themselves. Yep. 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 There's a segment of the market, again, like you talked about before, those hobby farms, farms like the one that I live on with my family. We rent our land out to a local dairy farmer here. So there's a segment of the market that's still leasing the land out, and then institutional investors, of course, are buying it with the sole purpose of renting it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one opportunity that I see in our market, it might be similar in yours, it might not be. So, building lots, if you want to go buy an acre out in the country, a family had a couple kids and they're going, okay, I don't want to raise the kids in town, want to move to the country.
Hmm.
You find an acre in the country here, 300, 350,000 is about what that lot's going for. Then you got to service it and then build your home and all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
often we'll say to people, well, why wouldn't you just buy, 25 acres? Well,
Hmm.
I can't cut that much grass, or what am I going to do with 25 acres? I only need one. I'm going to
Yeah.
struggle keeping up with 1 acre. And I'm like, well, you know
Yeah.
what? No, like, hang on here, because you're going to pay $300,000 for the first acre anyways.
Yeah.
The next 24 acres, your scales of economy grow, and they're actually trading for what farmland should sell for. And I'm like, well, so your building lot might be 300, $400,000. You might be able to buy 25 acres for 600, 650, 700, and
Yeah.
there's tax advantages that come with that. If you're making is it over $7,000 a year, all of a sudden you qualify for the tax benefits now.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you classify as a farmer, and that's not that difficult to come up with anymore, right? We've got 30 workable here, and we get well past that number.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We pay our property taxes here with that, and a little bit of the propane bill. So
And your property taxes are typically lower on a farm versus your residential rate.
substantially, yeah, yeah,
Quite a bit lower. And then the other
yeah,
thing is, hey, if all of a sudden you have a small, compact tractor now to take care of the property, normally if it's a lawnmower for my house, I can't write off that lawnmower. But if
yeah,
all of a sudden it's a tractor and I'm using it to clean out ditches and cut back the brush and all that kind of stuff, well, now it's part of the farming operation, right? So there's
exactly. Yeah.
not only is there property tax advantages, but there's actual like income tax advantages that come with that also, right?
Yep, yep, for sure there is. Yeah, yeah, lots of benefits. Absolutely. Well, yeah, just the pure enjoyment of the elbow room, right?
That too.
We got
Yeah.
kids and they maximize every square inch of this place, so it's
Love
great.
it. Now, we were just chatting before the show, and you mentioned that you guys just made an investment. You purchased was it a 50-acre farm for your
Yeah,
family?
yeah, 50-acre farm actually between me and you. So a little to the west
Okay.
of where we are. And yeah, yeah, good experience to go through. I think any realtor in the business, you probably agree with me. It's good once in a while to go through the process again, right? And be in the hot seat that your sellers and buyers are in all the time.
Yep. The
Gives you
emotional roller
perspective.
coaster that you ride,
That's
little
just it.
reality check. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, yeah, we picked up another 50 acres, which we didn't anticipate doing again. But yeah, as much as you've got that, on paper terrible return of 1%, it's still very attractive as a long-term investment. And yeah, we don't even own it yet. We've been out there hiking with the kids, and there's a sugar maple grove on it too, which we're definitely going to be
Cool.
taking advantage of. And we're like I mentioned, we love getting outdoors and doing some hunting, and that's a perfect property for that. So,
Let the dogs run, fire up the quads. Yeah.
yep, you
Love
got
it.
it, man. You got it.
Cool. Now, some farmers that have operations that are close to cities, all of a sudden their farmland isn't worth farmland prices anymore. It gets scooped up
Hmm.
by a developer, or even potentially the farmer becomes the developer. They partner with someone
Yep,
who can do the servicing. They go
yep. They can do a joint
through
venture. Absolutely.
Planning Act, stuff like that.
Yep.
Um, have you walked through that with a few people? How do you make sure that they're getting what they should be getting from it? What does prices of development land look like versus farmland? All that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's a similar question to, like you were saying before, what's land in Oxford versus what's land in Eastern Ontario versus what's land up on the Bruce, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty wide spectrum. A lot of it has to do with probably two big factors: time, how long is it before a shovel can get in the ground? and access to services, right?
Yep.
So, where's the septic or where's the sewage going to go? Where's the water coming from? And those types of things. So you can get a range of farms that we've sold for maybe double farmland price to farms that we've sold for 15 times farmland price, just based on how far out they are, and what segment of the market they're in, right? Density is going to be another thing, right? What can somebody do with that farmland? Are they going to be um, are they going to be employment lands? Are there going to be small strip malls on it? Are they going to be high-rise developments? Are they going to be, single-family dwellings? So there's a lot that go into valuing that too. And we've built some great connections and relationships in the market with folks in the know and contacts that we can tap into to make sure our clients are getting the real value of that property.
Now, does money pretty much always talk, or is there some people that are like, over my dead body, they're gonna, build houses and pave this farmland?
Yeah, generally that's not the client that's putting the sign in the lawn. If they are, they're going to have to be willing to sell it to a farmer who may turn around the next day and flip it to developers for
For
that
sure.
five
Yeah.
times profit, right? Or something like that. So once you sit down and talk, and it is part of the reality. We all live in houses, and every one of our houses is covering at least some form of arable land.
Yep.
So we've got to go somewhere. Um, yeah, I think for the most part, the clients are just looking to take full advantage and not be taken advantage of, right? They just want to make sure they're getting what their property's worth. And like I said before, the better we can do for them on those properties, the better they can do for their family moving forward. And, if they've got a few kids that want to stay in ag, that's one of the biggest challenges for our farmers now. They've got a family, and it just so happens that multiple kids want to stay in agriculture because they love it, and mom or dad are going, "Wow, we've got to scale, right?
Yep.
We've got to get bigger." And if they're lucky enough to own a piece on the edge of a town, that could really be critical in them plans. So, um, yeah, so it's still those decisions are still largely agricultural driven, even though that particular piece may end up with homes on it.
Interesting. So you guys have had to kind of understand the development side of real estate, farming operations, and I mean, farming operations is pretty diverse. You got livestock, you got cash crop, you got specialty crop, apples, whatever. Then all of a sudden you get into greenhouses.
Yeah,
And so in our area here, like Essex County, it's, probably greenhouse capital of North America.
totally.
Are they going to a lot of other parts of Canada, or how does that affect farmland prices? I know what they do here, you know, potentially for a really good piece of farmland that might again sell for 20, $30,000 an acre. You could see that going for 60 to 100 if
Yeah,
it's, big, flat, square, and has all the services available, especially natural gas and
that's
electricity.
right.
What's going on with the rest of Ontario in regards to, I guess, greenhouses? Are they popping up all over? I know Niagara is one area for that.
Yeah, we started to connect ourselves a little bit more. Two of the guys on the team, so Luke and his son Brad, actually jumped on board as well, and they grew up, owning greenhouses and working in that market. So that's, I think as you add the expertise to the team has an ability to start to grow into that area, right? So
Yep.
probably a better question answered by Brad. And thank goodness I don't have to know all the answers to these things, and we've got the team to do it. But we are getting calls. We were talking to kind of a consultant today that sources land for greenhouse builders. And yeah, they're looking in a variety of spots, right? And they're actually starting to push out from those high density greenhouse areas, looking for a little bit more, whether it's biosecurity or just distance from other greenhouses. So yeah, that's starting to they're
Less
starting to
stress
cast a
on the
wider
utility
net.
systems.
Yes, well, exactly. Yeah, I know. And that's just it. Like you said, you got to know exactly where the gas lines are running, what the capacity of those gas lines are, and is there three-phase hydro, if it's one phase hydro or single phase, is it worth putting in a generator system to bump it up?
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of questions when it comes to that, but they're looking further out, right? And I think partly back to your point that if it's perfect flat land for glass and it's got all the services there, you're going to pay a premium for it, right? So if you can put the same greenhouse on a piece you can buy for farmland value, these folks are going to consider it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we covered a lot there. Anything else that you want to leave the audience with before we start wrapping it up?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, it's an awesome market to work in, and we're just blessed to be a part of it. And I'm grateful that you were willing to chat with me about it, man.
No, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all that with people. I mean, farms are something that are easy to not notice unless you're paying attention to them.
Mhm.
But hey, the old farmers feed cities is a real thing,
It
and
is. Yeah.
their land feeds their family too. And it's pretty cool the things that you get to learn to once I guess you get to be a part of that community and part of one of those transactions. And I know we've run into each other on a couple farm transactions. I'm always thankful
Yep.
for when that crosses over.
Yep.
And yeah, learned a lot today, and I hope it benefits the audience too. So thank you for your
Yeah.
time. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thanks, Cody.
Thanks for listening to the show, folks. Please keep in mind that this show is not offering legal, financial, or accounting advice, but rather opinions and experiences in the world of real estate from the host and the guests. If you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and share with your friends and colleagues. And if you think that there's someone that needs to be on this show, please feel free to connect them with me. Or if there's a topic that should be discussed, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much, and bye for now.